Absence, as they say, makes the heart grow fonder. I hope so, at least. This is the 18th year of the India Today conclave. A warm welcome to you all. It's great to be back here and to see many familiar faces. And as it transpires, we've arrived not a moment too soon. We're on the threshold of two major events that epitomize the conclave theme of hard choices. Early this week, the Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, made his hardest choice by launching an airstrike on terrorist targets in Pakistan in response to the Pulwama attack. It was the deadliest terror attack in the valley on our security forces, killing 40 CRPF Jawans. The terror group, Jaish-e-Mohammed, operating out of Pakistan, took responsibility for this diabolical act. It was a firm and audacious response by Prime Minister Modi. No such strike has been undertaken since 1971. It could not have been an easy decision. And given the kind of country Pakistan is. Pakistan is a bonsai democracy on the brink of bankruptcy. It is driven by the compulsions of the army. Truly, it is an army with a country, not the other way around. At every opportunity, they threaten us with nuclear weapons. This time, Prime Minister Modi called their bluff. India was careful to couch its attack as a non-military preemptive strike and reach out to the international community to create a diplomatic firewall around its right to respond to a grave provocation. But inevitably, the escalatory cycle has begun. We are already engaged in an air warfare at the LOC. Today, the situation looks grim and murky. As claims and counterclaims abound, both sides can be accused of propaganda and misguided rhetoric. Truth is a casualty. It is a dangerous confrontation between two nuclear-armed countries which could spiral out of control. There is a stalemate. Pakistan says, let's talk, but India says it won't talk till Pakistan shows tangible evidence of dismantling their terrorist infrastructure. Quite rightly so. I'm afraid, till this stalemate is broken, armed conflict will continue up the escalation ladder. The only silver lining is that Pakistan has agreed to send back our brave heart Wing Commander V. Abhinandan, and he should be home today. Meanwhile, India has handed over a dossier to Pakistan containing evidence of Jaish's involvement in the Pulwama terror attack, apart from details of its camps and top leadership that operates in Pakistan. Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan has claimed he would immediately act if India provides actionable intelligence on the Pulwama attack. If Imran doesn't do so, it would justify any strong action that Prime Minister Modi may take in the coming days against terror groups, including the Jaish that Pakistan harbors. You must have read the newspapers today. Prime Minister's very clever but serious quip. A pilot project is done, now the real one has to be done. It was practiced earlier. So, ladies and gentlemen, this dangerous confrontation is not over yet, in spite of the conciliatory noises being made by Pakistan. But let me say, war cannot be an end in itself. It is always a means. It should not be initiated by pressure of public opinion. Frankly, we cannot win with Pakistan. And actually, we don't need to. We need to know how to manage them. What we need is to neutralize their terrorist networks and what experts call a policy of routinely mowing the grass. means don't let their terrorist networks grow. We need to apply sustained pressure. And the key word here is sustained, through all possible avenues, diplomatic, economic, and if necessary, sub-conventional warfare. This is a long haul, but we must do it if we are to avoid more Pulwamas. I don't think Pakistan will change his devious ways because of our strikes or LOC firings. Most importantly, we need to win the hearts and minds of the people of the valley and dissuade the Kashmiri youth from joining the path of militancy. At the moment, the more militants we kill, the more they multiply. We have to address the root cause of local militancy. The central government has to come up with solutions to achieve this. This would reinforce the dignity of our own democracy. It would provide greater security from our enemies across the border than any amount of chest thumping and muscle flexing can do. What is the route map to do this? Prime Minister Modi is known for his singular ability to think out of the box and act boldly and decisively in times of such crisis. He seems, to my mind, quite determined to get substantial evidence that Pakistan has to eliminate its terrorist networks before he does anything. I look forward to hearing from the Prime Minister's views on this tomorrow. India is confronted with many other hard choices, and I will return to those in a few minutes. But the theme is one that runs through the world. How should countries deal with immigrants and conflict? How much should they roll back globalization that has taken millions out of poverty but impoverished many in their home country? What should be done for the new class of people who are now termed as the precariat, which means people cutting across class and geography, whose employment and income are insecure, whose psychological state is one of chronic anxiety and instability? How is this insecure new class impacting the world? What choices are they forcing on all of us? You'll be hearing from the person who coined this term precariat in this conclave. For many conclaves, we have discussed the new world order. Today, it's different. We are now faced with the new world disorder. Europe is going through its own convulsions. To start with, the United Kingdom is having a nervous breakdown. It is faced with the choice of a hard Brexit, a soft Brexit, a no-deal Brexit. And it has to do it by the end of this month. You'll be hearing in this conclave from one of the major players of the Brexit drama. Regardless of the options chosen, the consequences will be dramatic. It just shows how a confused leadership and bad policy can wreck a country. Now, America, the most powerful country in the world, is ruled by a president who is the king of disorder. He is fighting with Congress, his own intelligence agencies, his staff, and of course, the media. A Twitter-happy president, obsessed with a mythical wall, is driving America into international isolation. His bromance with President Putin of Russia continues. In spite of that, the Russian president has threatened a strike with his new hypersonic missiles if USA moves its nuclear missiles to Europe. And he continues to add to his nuclear stockpile. The great irony in the world would be if he loses his job because of him. Anyway, you can be sure the Cold War is going to warm up. To add to his contribution to world disorder, President Trump has entered into a bruising trade war with China. What could be worse for international trade than the world's two largest economies at odds with each other? Meanwhile, China continues its inexorable rise to superpowerdom, both militarily and economically. But with their economy slowing down, this totalitarian state is going to face some hard choices too. We don't know exactly how all this will play out, or how long it will last. But we do know is the fact that all of them will face what is called the prisoner's dilemma in game theory, where the choices of each of the players makes, whether to collaborate or to compete, will determine everyone's fate. India is playing the international game very well. The Modi government has built a strong friendships with Islamic countries like Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Central Asian republics. This creates a friendly ring around Pakistan and diffuses its Islamic card. The Modi government has also kept its relations with the big powers like America, Russia, and China on an even keel. But while these geopolitical moves play out, soon all the countries in the world will face one giant-sized common transnational enemy, far greater than any we have faced, and that is climate change. This enemy will present every one of us with the hardest choices of all. We're not thinking hard enough about this. You will be hearing about this more in the conclave. At back home, India has seen its own share of upheavals. Last year, it was the unprecedented sight of 4 senior-most judges of the Supreme Court holding a press conference to air their grievances. This year, we had the unedifying sight of the top brass of the nation's premier investigating agency fighting with each other. We've seen midnight swoops, overnight sackings, and transfers. Questions are also being raised about the independence of the RBI after the governor quit recently following months of disagreements. Farmers are on the streets protesting. Students are clashing with each other. Dalit activism is on the rise. Minorities are feeling disenfranchised. Jobs creation is a matter of dispute. Some large business houses are in a state of meltdown. But to be fair, the economy is growing at a healthy rate. And at least we're getting some fugitives back. At the conclave, we will debate the importance of our institutions. Are they under assault? Or is all this merely Operation Cleanup? When does dissent become sedition? Should such a term even exist in India of 2019? When do critics become anti-national? Who gets to define nationalism in the first place? Is there a north-south divide? How do you encourage wealth creation at the same time reduce inequity? Are we having jobless growth? In the next 2 days, these questions will be answered by experts in their respective fields and people in positions of authority. I would like to take this opportunity to voice my pet grudge against all governments. After all, I only get a chance once a year. I believe nothing will change in India unless a courageous leader actually reforms the stifling Indian bureaucracy and the slothful public sector. Reform it to change their colonial attitude. They are here to serve us and democracy, not the other way around. The delivery of public services in India, especially in the area of health, education, and safety, still remains pathetic. And the enterprising and creative have their energy strangulated by unnecessary rules and regulations. Will this ever be fixed? Now for the big question on everyone's mind. Who's going to win the next general election barely a few months away? These days, this is the question most people ask me. My simple answer is, I don't know. Frankly, I believe nobody really does. It's all up in the air. However, we put together a panel of psephologists who will give you their best take. Also, you have straight after me the most astute politician I have known in my 40 years of being in journalism, BJP President, Mr. Amit Shah. Not only is he a master election strategist, but he's a brilliant organizer. I'm sure he will give you his insights on the forthcoming elections. This is a critical election. A party in power with a full majority after 30 years is seeking re-election. What I do know is that the result of this election will answer some key questions for me. These are not just questions about a government's track record, which every incumbent government faces. These are more fundamental questions. Does a full majority government deliver better development for the country than coalition governments? Does the country want one dominant leader or just a good team? What is the difference between Hindutva and being Hindu? How important is social cohesion for us? Can India afford a partition of hearts? Where does patriotism end and nationalism begin? Can alliances between enemies against a common enemy work? Does the electorate vote differently in state assembly elections versus general elections? Believe it or not, there have been 31 state elections in the past 5 years. How much does truth matter in elections? All parties have been economical with the truth, to put it mildly. Is everything fair in love, war, and elections? What role will social media play in 2019? Can propaganda and fake news trump reality? Today, all parties have upped their social media play. And finally, how will Pulwama affect the elections? To answer these questions, the answer to these questions will shape the future of India. Life is nothing but the choices we make. Who we marry or don't, where we choose to live or what kind of job we take, principles of pragmatism, love or hate, freedom or compliance. We are the sum of the choices we make. I believe our voting preference is one of our most crucial choices we make. It tells us who we are, and perhaps more important, who we want to be. Nobody has the God-given right to rule us in a democracy. If you look at the last 30 years, parties' vote shares have fluctuated and seats have fluctuated dramatically. Those who were written off have risen from the ashes like phoenixes. This means the hardcore supporters of parties, there are the hardcore supporters of parties, but there are many swing voters who will determine the outcome of an election. I suspect there are many of you sitting here like that.